They're all... they're all dead?
Everyone dies sometime, kiddo.
Okay, let's get this out of the way. If you finished Lost and thought, wait, so they were dead the whole time? You're not dumb. The show wants you to think that. It plants that idea right at the end when you're tired, emotional, and ready to be disappointed. And if that interpretation were true, yeah, it would ruin everything. So here's the problem. The ending of Lost isn't confusing because it's vague. It's confusing because it looks like one answer while operating on completely different rules. And once you see those rules, the ending stops feeling like a cheat and starts feeling deliberate. Most people get stuck on the church scene. Christian opens the door. Everyone's there. He says everything that happened to you was real, and then says they're dead. And your brain goes, wait, dead when? On the island, the crash, the whole 6 seasons? And the show doesn't immediately slow down to help you process that, which is kind of brutal because emotionally, you're already leaning forward instead of thinking clearly. That's the exact spot where it breaks for people, because if the answer is dead the whole time, then nothing mattered. And yeah, that would be awful. It would turn the island into a long-form dream sequence, which is basically the one Sin TV finales are never allowed to commit, especially not after investing this much time in consequence-driven storytelling. Okay, good, that's the confusion. Let's park it, not solve it yet. Just acknowledge that this is the mental traffic jam everyone hits almost regardless of how closely they watched. Here's the plain answer, early, no drama. No, they were not dead the whole time. The island stuff is real. The sideways flashes are the afterlife. That's it. That's the rule. It's incomplete, sure, but it's solid, and it's intentionally simple because anything more complicated at this point just adds noise. And now the rest of the job is just making that sentence stop feeling like damage control and start feeling inevitable. So let me back up for 1 second. On the island, everything follows consequences. People get hurt and don't magically reset. Boone dies and stays dead. Charlie dies and stays dead. Jack's choices wreck his life, then kind of rebuild it, then cost him everything. And importantly, when characters make bad calls, the show doesn't erase them later to clean up continuity. It lets those mistakes rot and forces other characters to live with them. Desmond gets blasted with energy and doesn't explode, but that's still consistent inside the show's rules. Weird, yes. Random, no, stuff happens. It sticks. Even the island's strangest elements still obey internal cause and effect, which is why the danger always feels permanent, not symbolic. That's your first anchor. The island has permanence, and permanence is the one thing dream logic never has. Now compare that to the sideways world. This is where people start reaching for shortcuts, like, oh, it's an alternate timeline where the plane didn't crash. I thought that too. At first, it feels clean. It feels like the kind of sci-fi solution the show would use, and honestly, for a few episodes, the show lets you sit in that assumption without correcting you, which makes the eventual reveal feel harsher than it needed to be. But then things don't line up, and not in small ways, not in blink-and-you-miss-it details. Jack has a kid who never existed. Locke is still paralyzed but somehow at peace with it, which should immediately feel off if this were just a different version of life. Saeed is with Shannon even though that relationship barely existed compared to Nadia, the woman his entire arc revolved around emotionally and thematically. And Desmond, this is important, Desmond is acting like he knows he's inside something fake. Not confused, not curious, aware, like he's already skipped ahead in the answer key and is waiting for everyone else to catch up. That's not timeline behavior. That's awareness behavior. That's someone noticing the edges of the room instead of the furniture inside it. Okay, so here's the missing rule people don't get told out loud. The sideways world exists outside of time, not in the future, not another timeline, outside. And that distinction matters more than it sounds like it should because it immediately removes the need to reconcile dates, ages, or cause and effect logic. That's why people who died decades apart all show up together. That's why Boone is there even though he died in season 1 and Jack dies at the end. And that's why the show never bothers to explain when the sideways takes place because the answer is, it doesn't. Time doesn't line up because it's not supposed to. Once you lock that in, a bunch of stuff stops fighting you. Scenes that felt sloppy suddenly feel deliberate, or at least internally consistent. Now let's go back to the church scene, the one that breaks people. Christian says they're dead. And yeah, if you don't catch the next sentence, it sounds like a nuke. Like the show just admitted to the worst twist imaginable with no apology attached.
They're all dead.
Everyone dies sometime, kiddo.
But what he actually says, kind of quietly, almost like he doesn't want to interrupt Jack's emotional momentum, is that everyone dies sometime. Some before Jack, some long after, but they all end up here because this place is where they found each other, where their lives actually intersected in a way that mattered. That's the part people skip over emotionally, because they're busy fact-checking. They're trying to solve it instead of listening to it, which is understandable given how Lost trained its audience for years. This isn't saying the island wasn't real, it's saying the sideways world is the place they built to let go of it. Not erase it, let go of it. Okay, but wait. This is where people push back, and fairly. If the sideways is the afterlife, why does it look like a normal world? Why does it have problems? Why does Locke still suffer? Why does Jack still feel incomplete? And more importantly, why doesn't it feel peaceful if that's what it's supposed to be? Good question. And this is where the show kind of tricks you again, because it never labels the sideways as anything comforting or finished. The sideways isn't heaven, it's not a reward, it's unfinished. People are stuck there because they're still carrying the same unresolved stuff they had when they died. The same regrets, the same need for validation, the same emotional loops. Locke still needs Jack to see him. Jack still needs to fix something. Ben still can't forgive himself about Alex, and nobody's ready yet. That's the point. Readiness is the entire mechanic. And the moment they do wake up, like really wake up, it's always through connection, not information, not memory alone. Connection. Charlie remembers with Claire, Sun and Jin remember together. Sawyer and Juliet remember at the vending machine, which, yeah, okay, that was mean. The show knew what it was doing there. It picked the most mundane setting possible on purpose, just to prove that it wasn't about spectacle anymore. Now let's clear another big misconception. People say, okay, but if the sideways is afterlife, why is the island underwater in it? Isn't that a timeline clue? Isn't that saying the bomb worked? It sounds like one, it's not. The island underwater isn't a what-if answer. It's a visual shorthand. The light is gone. The thing that mattered, the thing that bound them together, doesn't exist here. So the island is literally submerged, erased from relevance. It's not history, it's absence. And the show never treats it like a puzzle piece you're meant to decode frame by frame. Now, Jack's death. This is where everything lines up if you're watching carefully and not rushing ahead. Jack dies on the island, like actually dies, bleeding out. Bamboo forest. Vincent shows up, full circle from episode 1. Real death, end of life, no ambiguity, no cutaway to soften it. And then separately, he wakes up in the sideways church. That separation matters. Because if he were dead the whole time, there would be no transition, no contrast, no need to show both. The show goes out of its way to give you both. One ending for the body, one ending for the self. One more thing people trip on, if this is the afterlife, why does Desmond trigger everyone? Because Desmond is the only one who's already been unmoored from time. He's been displaced, unstuck, slid sideways before the sideways even existed. So in that world, he's basically early. Not special in a chosen one way, just early. That's why he's nudging people instead of waiting. He's not there to solve anything, he's there to remind. Okay, let's land this emotionally. Because that's what the ending is actually doing. The finale isn't trying to answer every mystery. It's closing relationships. It's saying the island mattered because it changed these people. And once that work was done, once they let go of who they were clinging to, they could move on. Not together because of destiny. Together because they chose each other, because these were the people who saw them clearly when it counted. That's why Ben stays outside the church. He's not ready. And that's okay. No punishment, no judgment, just not yet. So no, the show isn't saying nothing mattered. It's saying it mattered so much that it followed them beyond life. And yeah, the execution's messy, the signals are muddy, and the show absolutely let people misread it, but it didn't cheat. One last thing, because I know this is still sitting there. If you want to hate the ending, you still can. That's fair, but it's not because they were dead the whole time. That part's just wrong. So here's my real question for you. Do you agree with my take? That they weren't dead the whole time? Or do you see it differently? Tell me your take. I read every comment. If there's another movie or series ending that left you confused, one that never quite clicked for you, tell me which one you'd like me to cover next. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon for another video.